Hey, this is the Rallis Regimen. I'm Matt. This is Mike. Today on the video, we're going to be talking about our favorite personal splits and when you might employ different splits depending on your training goals. And the unsatisfactory and quick to the point answer to this for me is my favorite split is the one I'm currently doing. And I say that because I do end up changing my splits quite a bit, if nothing else out of boredom, but there's often a reason for uh, changing it that regards to what my fitness goal is at the time.
No
So
one wants to hear that. Come on, take a hard
it,
stance. What's your
okay,
favorite? Come on,
uh, just full body every day is my favorite.
really?
No, no, it's not. I don't do that. But right now, well, I'll say right now, I'm doing a lower upper split 4 days a week total. So I do lower one day, upper the next day. I take a day off. I do lower and then upper again. Take 2 days off and start
Now
the
let me,
week again.
yeah, let me ask you a few questions about this. So first of all, when you say off, you're off,
Well,
or what are you doing on that day?
off from lifting.
Okay.
On those other days, I'm doing some sort of what people would consider cardio. But to me, more specifically, I'm viewing it as generally speed, power, and or endurance training of some sort. So depending on what I'm doing and how I'm feeling. That could be something like sprints. It could be air bike intervals, and that would be more of a speed slash VO2 aerobic max capacity work. Or it could be all the way down to if I really need a day off, just simply walking for some really low level endurance cardio. Or if I want to turn that up a little bit, it could be like biking for 45 to 60 plus minutes. It could be incline walking on the treadmill. It could be walking on the treadmill with a weighted backpack or weight vest um, for, again, 45 to 60 plus minutes. So that's the in between day, and then 2 off days after the full week of lifting are those cardio days.
All right, I have a couple more questions, but before I ask you those, I'll just throw mine in because
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna take a hard line stance here.
Oh wow.
My favorite split, the one that I always come back to, which is actually not technically what I'm doing right now, but a conjugate style, West Side
Yeah.
barbell style, a max effort lower day, a max effort upper day, and then a dynamic lower and a dynamic upper day. Similar to what you're saying, upper lower split with a day between and 2 days between on the weekend, is kind of the traditional way to do it. Um, it's probably because I've always needed to went through pro wrestling. So for the last 10 years, you always want to train for some sort of performance athletically and also for body composition for aesthetics. So like that's just kind of the best way to do that in my opinion. You get a full balanced day where one day you're attacking max effort strength for lower body, one day you're doing it for upper body, and then you're doing a dynamic day where you get some speed and explosive and hypertrophy training in one day for both lower and upper. And then, when I'm wrestling, I do a little bit of the cardio, but it's really more of like that middle day is a recovery day. And then the cardio kind of comes from doing the wrestling. Now that I'm not doing that full time, I'm similar to you. I'm throwing in cardio days in that middle day.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do cart, like, so in that split, actually, right now, let me just say I'm doing a full on hypertrophy split. So it's just
Okay, that was
it's
going to be.
upper
Yeah,
lower, but it's upper hypertrophy, lower
yeah.
hypertrophy, cardio day, then two more hypertrophy
Okay,
on the
so you're
back end.
not doing the conjugate split.
Not right now, but it's
Yeah,
just I always come back to it, and I will soon.
yeah,
I miss the strength training, you know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and
When you get that itch to start going heavy.
Yes, yep. And even now that the hypertrophy, the reps are dropping to sixes and eights
Mm-hmm.
for my main lift,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting close to that strength range. But I don't do, you mentioned doing the speed training on your off day away from the weight room.
Mm.
So like, and you
To
said
be to
sprints.
be to yeah to be clear, that's and this is maybe a little more advanced in the sense that, we've both been training for a long time. And so I feel very confident. I mean, it's not even something I think about in my ability to know my body and know where I'm at, as far as, am I ready to do something that day? Do I need to recover a little bit? So that is one, that speed work, whether it's sprints or the air bike stuff, is highly contingent on how I'm feeling that day. One, two, that's not something I ever feel like I need to force in. So I might even go a couple weeks with those 3 cardio days a week where I don't do any of that. And at most, it's probably one of those days a week, especially if I'm doing something like sprints, like actual running sprints or hills or something that's really taxing on the body, even a small amount of it. Um, like once a week of that is usually enough for me, if not,
Yeah.
longer than that, 10 to 14 days even. And that's, like I said, highly dependent. If I'm really crushing myself in the weight room in a good way, and I feel like I need that recovery, I'm not going to just go, do those sprints just because it says it's on the program, which is why I say it's maybe a little bit more advanced if you don't have that sort of intuitive switch where you can, kind of just know where you're at from that. You can only gain that from, many years of training. Then it is a little bit of a, I think where you're probably going with that is it can be depending on the type of, strength training that you're doing, whether it's more hypertrophy or strength based. You can put a lot of stress on your system with that
Yeah.
speed work.
And the muscles, I mean, which are a
Yes.
part of the system. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've pulled too many hamstrings to
Yeah.
throw a speed day in kind of willy nilly. It's just not saying that's what you're doing, but if I'm doing a speed day, it's a full on, I'm taking my time warming up and
Yeah.
making
Right.
sure that my body's fully recovered for that.
Yeah.
Because I've done the other thing, just stupidly not being fully recovered and doing heavy eccentric work and hypertrophy work and sprinting, and it's just too
Mhm.
much. And then I just wanted to ask you, you're not doing, is it just intuitive for how your body's feeling? Are you doing anything else to track? Or is it
Are you
dependent
saying
on,
as far as progression
no,
of
no, no,
those
for
things?
the
Or
knowing
oh,
if you need to take
oh,
a day off?
oh, no. I mean,
Or is
are
it
you talking?
dependent
If
on exactly how the weight room went yesterday? It's like, oh, I missed a rep yesterday. Like I truly went to failure like today. Or is it literally just, hey, I woke up, I feel like I slept good. I'm not sore. Like does that
Yeah,
play
yeah,
into it at all? Or
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's not just, yeah, it's not like intuitive, like just in my head. Yeah, I'm part of that intuition to me is knowing my body, as in like, and I'm sure you have the same thing. And this is something make people, if you don't have that experience, it's not your fault or anything, but you just don't have that feel of like you can be sore. There's a sore, and then there's like I'm too sore. And so it's like if I'm feeling a little bit of something, I maybe know I can push through it. If I'm really sore, I'm like, I just need a day off. On top of that, too, I often, like, let's say I'm going to get on the air bike, or that's the idea for one of these speed days, or short intervals on the bike, a VO2 max, type workout. Um, Obviously, no matter what, that kind of thing I'm warming up for. And oftentimes within the warm up and building into that, I will feel like, ooh, I just don't have it today. And you know what? Instead of doing that, I'm going to just switch to longer intervals or a steady state bike ride for a little bit, get my sweat up, get my heart rate into that, mid zone, and just do that sort of endurance cardio for the day. If I start warming up and I feel good, even after maybe I've been a little sore, I'm like, no, I'm ready to go. And so I'm using like physical cues beforehand. I'm using my intuition and knowing, hey, I've been hitting it pretty hard, not just maybe the lift the day before, but maybe the last several lifts. And then I'm also using, my actual activity once I start in the warm up to say, okay, it's go time or it's back off time. And I can always back off to that endurance sort of, as you said, zone 2 cardio, and
Yeah.
be confident that I'm not going to, like, tweak a hamstring or overexert
Yeah.
my, nervous system in a way. So that's a safe fallback always. If I don't feel like I'm ready to
Mhm.
go, I'll just stick with that.
Yep, that I would say that's the same with me. And then I also track through the Aura Ring numbers like that, and
Yeah.
I would say that's like I use that as like, in the with like the NFL Combine, if a guy runs like a real fast 40, all that really should do is make you go recheck the tape. Like, is this guy
Mm.
really that fast? Or it's same thing if he runs a real slow 40. It's like, is he really that slow? Let me just go recheck. That's kind of how I use the Aura Ring numbers. It's like, if it's a really good number and I feel good, it's like, yeah,
Confirms.
that
Yeah.
verifies it. If it's a really good number but I don't feel great, I'm like, let me like re-examine exactly what's going on here, make sure that the numbers add up and that yesterday wasn't that hard, and vice versa. If it's I feel good but the number's not great, I just kind of check, make sure as I'm warming up, like you said, do I really feel good, because the number said I might not be as ready as I normally am.
Yeah.
So that's just the only thing I'd add to that.
Yeah.
And then let's talk a little bit about, like, in general, how these splits favor different types of goals. And so
Sure.
I guess, generally speaking, I would say the more damage you're going to do to muscle, um, the less frequently you want to work it out per week, right? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And so, okay, so then the splits where you're really breaking down muscle, which is what you do when you're going for hypertrophy, especially,
Hmm.
that's going to be less days per week. So, like,
Well, yes, depending on volume.
sure,
I
yeah,
tend to look at it as more weekly volume. Um, like it's not necessarily that it'll be less days per week. Uh, but if you were not to if you were to do hypertrophy, and you were going to do 3 lower body sessions a week, each one of those sessions has to be less volume or intensity or some combination of that
yeah,
than if you were to do it 2 times a week or 1 time a week. If you go back to like the kind of the bro bodybuilder split, which
yeah.
I've never really done that and stuck with that. I don't think you have either. And I don't think that that's, it'll build muscle better than not doing anything. But I think that the science is a little clearer on that now, that that's probably not the best way to just hit a muscle like once a week, no
Do you
matter
say
how
that
hard you hit it. Yeah.
because you're not getting enough volume, or why do you
Yes.
say
And
that? Yeah,
a frequency more than anything.
right.
If you look at the
Just
studies,
just the
frequency,
frequency. Yeah,
yeah, hitting a muscle once a week, like it doesn't matter if you're one chest day and you do like 25 sets of bench and then 15 sets of incline and flies, and you do the whole thing. It's just doing that simply one day out of 7 is not stimulating the most muscle growth.
yeah,
Similarly, like hitting that muscle every day does work. Maybe not ideal, but you're going to have to scale back your volume so much to hit that frequency. And to me, that's why most people fall in the category of where we're talking about, where an upper lower so split. So we're hitting lower muscles and upper muscles. Basically, if you're doing a full hitting all your muscles, you're hitting them twice a week. Or people do a lower pull push split, that just splits the upper body because there's a little more, uh, there's more muscles, smaller muscles in that upper body. If you really are more leaning towards the bodybuilding thing and you want to really be able to hit those muscles without having your workout be like 2 hours, you can split that push and pull upper lift. But again, you're still just hitting all those muscles twice a week. Um, that's most people fall in that 2 to 3 times a week. If you do a full body, Monday, Wednesday, Friday type thing, 3 times a week, most people are falling in there. They're not hitting it once a week, and they're not hitting it 6 or 7 times a week. And that's just kind of that sweet spot to me. And that's where I like to fall. So I'll do different programs, but generally they're all going to fall in that 2 to 3 times a week frequency of each
So
hitting each muscle.
do you do so? For me, I would say, if you're only goal or your main goal is hypertrophy, it's certainly possible and okay to do a full body split 3 days a week, but maybe not ideal. Would you agree with that? Or would you say it's just as good as upper lower?
Uh, I would say it depends hugely
Sure. It's just
on your experience level.
okay. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, like a beginner, which would be like generally sort of in the like fitness world. I mean, beginner is even considered like anything under. Sometimes I see 2 years or less of training.
Yeah.
Certainly, like a year or less. Or if you used to train, but it was like 15 years ago and you're coming back, you're basically starting over. You're going to get so much stimulus for all your muscles from a full body 3 times. Like that's actually going to give you your best results. And you actually don't need as much volume to stimulate the same growth. The more advanced you become, like giant bodybuilder guys, just the fact that their muscles are so big, they're actually incurring more damage and need more time to recover. So for them to
Yeah.
do 3 days a week, they're lifting such heavy weights. I mean, you are too. It's like it's going to be so damaging to your body, your muscles, that it's just not tenable in the long term. So um, from that standpoint, the more advanced you are, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. Like three day full body hypertrophy, if you've been training for 20 years, is not ideal. It's not going to get you the best results. Like you'll be fine. It's still going to work, but not the best results. You've been training 6 months. I wouldn't do anything other than 3 days a week full body.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I think that's a good place to leave it. I think to summarize our favorite split and what the best split is, it depends.